Welcome to the family with
co-host Catherine Brandt.
And Andy Brandt Bernard.
God, it's weird not having Ralphie in on Tuesdays now.
Yeah.
We're going to have to find another Ralphie.
I thought he was going to StreamYard in once in a while.
I think we're going to start talking about that this week, maybe.
Oh, you are? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, he hasn't moved yet, has he?
I don't think so.
He's on the road a lot. That I do know. No question about it. So, a couple of things that I've talked about on the morning show that I would like to bring up to you guys. The first thing I see this morning when I wake up, I woke up at about 3 o'clock in the morning and then went back to sleep until about, 6:30, something like that.
Yeah.
I get up and the first thing I see on television is a report on CNN that white women and black women do not get along and should not hang out with each other. What is that all about?
Okay, I better call Rhonda right now.
Yeah, call Rhonda. You're out of the mix, Catherine. Why would they be reporting that white women and black women cannot get along?
Well, because they're just stupid. It's all clickbait crap.
So they're
Just
trying
garbage.
to draw your attention.
Yeah,
That's what
just,
they're doing.
that's
CNN,
what the
that's
view
what they
is.
do.
That's what all of these people are doing. That's what they've been doing for years and years, and people are finally catching on to it. Some people are stupid, and they'll be too slow.
Yeah.
And they will keep agreeing because they like to go where the herd goes. But the majority of people are catching on and are just done with it.
Yeah, I think, well, there's a hell of an example right there for you because Joe Rogan had the number one podcast in the country until 2 months ago, right?
Oh.
Then he jumped out and started supporting one side of the political issues, and then his show dropped to number 2 behind one of the Kelsey guy's wife or something.
Kelsey Guy's wife.
Oh,
Kelsey
what's their
guy?
name? Oh, those
Oh, you mean
the
the
football
singer
players.
lady?
Oh, Travis Kelsey.
Travis
Kelsey. What's his wife's name?
They're not
Taylor Swift.
married.
No, not Taylor Swift, the other one.
Oh,
Travis Kelsey has
The one that
as well.
Travis Kelsey has a brother that's a football player too.
Oh, he has a brother. Jason Kelsey.
Jason Kelsey. Who's he married to?
Jason Kelsey would be married to Kylie Kelsey.
There you go. So Kylie Kelsey took over the number one podcast in the world, I guess, not just in the country, but the number one podcast in the world for about a week.
Yeah, she had a new podcast in December that debuted at the top of the podcast charts, whatever that means.
well, that happens a lot when somebody,
is
somebody
that what it
famous
is?
opens up a podcast and everybody listens to it for a week and then decides whether or not they like it.
Oh, we were at the top of iTunes for a while when we first started.
Yeah.
New stuff always gets pushed right to the top.
Sure.
I suppose that is true. But the other thing about that is that now the number one podcast, and it was all over the national news this morning, the number one podcast in the world now is a religious podcast about the rosary. Why would that be?
The Rosary.
Oh,
I mean, God bless them.
Is it in Spanish?
I have no idea. I have no clue. It just said that it's a rosary podcast and it's the number one podcast in the world.
well, I think that there
Rosary
is
beats
a
Rogan. Oh, yeah, here we go.
realization. Sorry, what?
Let's see. Rosary in a Year, it's called. Rosary in a Year.
My dad would have been all over that. He loved
He
the
sure
rosary.
would have.
Oh, your dad did?
Spent so much time trying to get the Rosary on his Alexa.
Yeah, so it
There you
automatically
go.
come on. Catholic Mass and that nun.
Yep.
None on YouTube, right?
No.
Yeah,
Don.
YouTube.
Rosary in a Year is podcast number 1 on the Apple charts.
Or the Apple charts. There you go.
Okay, then why not?
Well,
I don't know what that means, but
I think
yeah.
people are just finally going, hey, you know what? We've lost our culture. We've lost our faith.
Yeah.
We've turned to things that are not working for anybody: drugs, alcohol, politicians. Who, I mean, none of that's going to ever work, right?
No, you're right.
For
Not
any
for
length
long.
of time. And I think that people might just be thinking there's more to life than just smoking dope, getting drunk with my friends, and hating on a political party. Although I don't think you can hate
Hey.
on the UK Labour politicians enough.
Stop bad-mouthing stand-up comedians' lifestyles.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's when their
right.
initials are CE. That's a real
Politics,
problem.
sure. Drugs, sure. But getting drunk with your friends? Come on, lady.
Costaki, did you hear about that? The number one podcast in the world now is a rosary podcast.
What does that mean? A rosary? I
They
just
read
jumped
the
on and heard
rosary.
that.
It's like an analysis of the rosary. I honestly don't know enough about the rosary. I haven't done the rosary in a very long time.
Like ever.
No, I
What is it?
mean,
5 Hail Marys and an Our Father or something?
yeah,
And
it's
then
something like
there's a
that. You do
bigger
5 Hail
bead
Marys, you
that's-
do the Our Father, and then there's like 5 beads for the 5 mysteries or something. Dave's in the
Yeah.
chat. He'll tell me how I'm wrong, but
Yeah.
I think the last time I did the rosary, I was probably like 14 years old.
I
It's
know
been a long
we've been
time.
going to a Catholic mass, and they give you a handout every week about all things Catholic, like what all the colors mean that the priest is wearing and why the candles are like this and that. And I grew up Catholic, and I went to a Catholic elementary school. My parents were super Catholic, but I was mentally not taking in anything.
No, there's just so much.
They were telling me as a child. I mean,
When
zero.
it comes to Catholicism, there's just a lot to take in because everything has
Yes.
some sort of 2,000-year-old meaning
Right.
that they've been doing since the dawn of time. And it's like, oh, the reason the doors open this way is because, Jesus opened a door one time or
Yeah,
whatever.
I mean, yeah,
It's
they
like,
really
it's
are into
impossible to,
traditions.
like, even the Pope probably doesn't even know half of this stuff.
No, yeah. But anyway, I mean,
One of
there's some
those
of the
things.
words, I'm like, Tom knows more of the words than I do. Is it because you were an altar boy?
I was an altar boy for 1 week.
Oh, only a week. Oh, I thought.
Did you ever hear the story?
I thought
Well,
it was a couple of months.
you never heard about that? It was
Yeah,
1 week.
I heard about it, but I thought it was more than a week.
Costaki, very quickly. Andy's heard this story too. I'm in seventh grade, I guess. I was 7th grade. I think that's the age you are when you're an altar boy and all the rest of it.
Yeah.
And I was the altar boy the week before Easter. Okay. So I'm there. And of course, the following Sunday, because I'm a brand new altar boy, I'm not going to do Easter Mass. That's all the big shots that are in 8th grade that get to
you're
do
a
that.
rookie.
That's
I'm
the
a rookie.
Super Bowl. Yeah, right.
So I go into the St. Anne's church because I realize that if I come home, it was Palm Sunday. It was not Easter Sunday. It was Palm Sunday. That I realized if I came home without a palm, my mother's going to go, "Why didn't you go to Mass today?" So I sneak into the church to get a palm. Basically, I'm going to steal a palm on Palm Sunday.
Yeah, great.
And I'm with a couple of friends of mine. And we're standing over the not up at the main altar, but the secondary altar,
The subaltar.
the subaltar. And my friend says to me, "What's the matter with you?" I said, "Oh, it's these palms." He goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, all I got left are the effed up ones. Right behind me is the Archbishop." I was no longer an altar boy after I said that in the church.
Oh,
that
wow.
was the end of my altar boy career.
Hey, that's a
Blasphemy.
dramatic closing on the whole thing, right?
That was a very dramatic closing
Well, if
for
you're
an
not-
11-year-old boy.
Familiar with Catholicism, Archbishop is, I think, like number 3 in terms of like it goes the Pope, and then there's cardinals,
Bishop.
and then below that,
Bishop.
I think, is the Archbishop. So
Yes.
Just watch
it's
the
pretty
Borgias.
high up.
Oh, it's
Then
very
the
high up.
Speaker
Yeah,
of the
you're right,
House
because it's
is up
third.
there, yeah.
And then bishops are 4th, and then priests are 5th.
I
guess.
believe so. Let's see.
A lot of priests drink 5ths. That's the other thing.
Oh,
Thank you very much. Great to be here.
how is Greece,
Lowest,
Costaki?
yes, it's Pope, Cardinal, Archbishop, Bishop, Priest, Deacon. Everyone forgets about
deacons.
those
I
four
Or the
forgot about
deacons.
deacon,
the
yeah. Because
deacons.
they're not really.
I don't know what a deacon is.
The religious rankings. I haven't even thought of the world this way.
Catholicism, that's another thing they like, is they like those rankings.
They do.
Yeah,
Yep.
they do.
It's true.
Greece was great. This is the first time I've ever called you guys that I didn't have to set the alarm. My body clock is all screwed up.
Oh, don't you just love that? You're waking up at 3
Yeah.
o'clock in the morning. You're like,
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
going to become a morning person now. I'm going to work out.
Right,
I'm
that's
gonna...
right. I've been up for hours. Yeah.
And then 2 weeks later, you're right back to where you were before.
Yep.
So Greece is what, like +3 or something like that?
It's 10 hours difference from LA. It's really, it's a big.
So LA is -8, so it's +2 then. Okay. Yeah, so that's a big difference.
Yeah. It's big. Yeah, it's mind bending to fly, But yeah, it was awesome. I love Greece and to spend time with my extended family and my kind of immediate family, my mom and my brother and some of the people that I'm close to. I just don't get to see very often. We're just all running around Athens and eating everything in sight. It was fun. I loved it.
Nice. I hear you can go to some of these smaller towns outside of big cities, about an hour out of big cities, and you can buy really nice properties.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that's true in Greece. In fact,
So you should do that and let us use it.
they have Greece
There
has
you
some.
go.
Greece has a program. I think this is not unusual, but I'm familiar with the Greek version because my brother is kind of looking into it. They have some. I forget the language, but it's something like golden visa or something.
Oh,
Where
gold. Yeah, I think golden visa.
if you bring
Yep, the Greece
like
Golden Visa.
250 grand worth of real estate
Mm-hmm.
to the table, that you're kind of like welcome into the community. So yeah,
You're
you
allowed
can,
to live in and Greece and travel freely across Europe if you invest 250,000 euros.
is that
in Greek
true?
real-
Just
in
Greece
Greek
or
real
everywhere?
You can live
Okay.
in Greece, but you can go to anywhere in Europe.
Yeah, because once you're a part of the EU universe, it's it's amazing what they pulled off. It's still astounding to me that these cultures that have been around for thousands of years just gave up their currency. You know,
It is
Yeah.
interesting. I know. It's like
no
how
more
long-
drachmas, no more lira, no
Yeah,
more
yeah.
marks. They're just gone forever. And going through the airports, we went from Athens to Amsterdam, and they're very easygoing about that sort of flying across borders. Once you're within the EU, you're all right. It's kind of cool.
I had a Greek moment yesterday. Catherine and I had an exam done because my right foot, the ankle got a little tight because I've been walking, somewhere between 5 and 8 miles every day.
Wow.
And basically, just my foot had to get used to it. There's nothing wrong with it. It just got a little tight. But I was talking to the doctor, and the doctor did a nice job, kind of did an exam on Catherine, and that all worked out beautifully.
Fox.
Dr.
Bless
Fox.
you.
Yep, his name is Dr.
Jude.
Christopher Jude Fox.
Like
Judy.
Like our dog.
Our dog name is Judy. But in any case, he was talking to me about the family and this, that, and all the rest of it. And he asked me what my mother's name was, and I said Theophila. And he said, "Oh, so you're Greek?" I said, "No, actually, I'm not Greek, but Theophila is definitely Greek.
Just
Yeah.
made
Mars
up.
sounds Greek.
The love of God."
Yeah,
Yes.
Catholic Greek.
Indeed. So,
Well, it's
yeah,
like our kid Colin. The Colin name origin is Greek, I think, or Gaelic, depending on which
Gaelic. I
spelling
thought.
you use. We did
Oh, I
the
suppose,
Gaelic
yeah.
one, but we're not Gaelic in any way. So,
well, their great grandmother was.
well, I guess it depends on. Are you talking about the Scottish version or the Irish version? Because we're not Irish at all.
I'm talking about the Greek version of Theophila.
Oh, yeah, no. Yeah, I don't think we have any Greek in there whatsoever, or at least I don't. I know that much.
Thank God.
Oh, that's nice, Kostaki. That's nice. There you go.
You got some Greek in you? You want some? There's the other.
Oh, God. What, have you been to a bar again? Have you been hanging around the bars?
I'm drinking ouzo.
God.
I'm hitting ouzo pretty hard.
I did drink
Suffering
some
through that
ouzo.
one.
And
Did
even
ya?
worse,
Oh, you did.
a new drink that I've never had, Mastika. Are you familiar with this flavor?
No.
They make chocolates and some other things with Mastika too. It tastes like ouzo and a pine tree had a baby. It's not. I don't recommend it, but it's interesting. It was cool to try it.
It's always nice trying those things just to see. It's like, what are people drinking over here or whatever.
Right.
Well, it's usually some plant that's bountiful there.
Yeah, well, it's like gin. Gin is made out of like juniper
berries.
berries and stuff like that. And it's like juniper berries are not something you eat because they don't taste good at all.
Right.
But people found a way. They're like, hey, what if we make this into alcohol? And now it's palatable.
Yeah,
Right.
kind of.
It's interesting how
Gin's
that
not
works.
particularly delicious either, but
It depends on the gin. If you get good gin, get something like a Hendrix or a Bombay Sapphire, it's good. But yeah, like if you're talking about just like, rail gin, no, very bad.
But I get it. I see the appeal. Like now that I'm a grown up, the appeal of like, just sitting with a glass of scotch and some ice cubes. And I was in a club I did in Michigan a couple of weeks ago. I had a speakeasy upstairs, and I would go up there and get an old fashioned after the show. I was like, felt like a grown up. It was cool.
Just imagining Kostaki sitting at a table with a bunch of old Greek guys sipping ouzo, talking about what joints hurt.
Yeah, you got to play backgammon and solve all
exactly
problems right there at the table. Yeah,
too
great stuff.
Too cold for my Achilles tendon today.
We did see, not this trip, but I have seen there's an airline from Cyprus called Icarus Air.
Oh,
Which
sure.
makes me
That's
giggle.
not a good name.
Right. Icarus didn't finish his flight.
No, he sure didn't.
Yeah.
Well,
They
Bad
think it
flight.
through.
Let's
Yeah.
name our flight after a guy who fell out of the air and died.
Yeah. What's a good story to inspire air travel? Hindenburg's been taken.
yeah, right. You can't have that.
Icarus Air. That's a bad flight. It's better than Oedipus Air, though. You know what I'm saying? That's bad.
True.
You kill your.
All our pilots are blind.
But other than that,
So both of our teams lost this week. At least yours is still going to the playoffs.
We look so dreadful.
terrible. That was one of the worst Viking games I've ever seen in my entire life.
That was a big letdown game, yeah. Which is,
Yeah, it was.
I think it's the Vikings' version of throwback uniforms when they have a game where they just look terrible, and you're like,
Yeah.
I know this team.
No, I just don't know what it is about big games in the Vikings. They just cannot seem to, in the 65 years I've been watching them, they just can't seem to get it done.
It would be so fun if they won it all this year. I mean, they're in
Yep.
it. They're in the tournament. You get in the tournament, you never know what's going to happen. So I don't know. That was a tough game for Sam Darnold. He must have been in a New York state of mind. It was a little throwback to his prior chapter.
The Jets,
Yes, the Jets. It was ugly. This was the first time this year that the Minneapolis sportscasters had worse news than the Minneapolis weathermen.
what do you mean? It's only, what it was, about 3 below, Andy, the other day?
Depends on if you're talking about real temperature or how it felt. Because we got
wind
down
chill.
to, I believe, minus 20 the other day, yes.
Minus 20.
Yeah, that was fun.
And then DC got a foot of snow.
Yeah, Joe said they got 8 inches of snow where he was
Woo!
in Louisville.
In Louisville.
Yeah,
8 inches of snow.
8 inches. Yeah,
Way
we didn't even we didn't get snow. We just it just got so cold so quickly. That's
Yeah,
one
that-
interesting thing people don't often know about really cold climates is once it gets cold enough, it stops snowing.
Right.
The snow
Yeah.
just cannot form because it's too cold for
Yeah.
snow.
I used to do a
It
joke
snows.
about that at Acme. Yeah, once it gets so cold it won't snow. What the hell
Yep.
is that? Even the snowflakes are like, I'm not going outside today.
You know, you got to be careful. There's a certain type of Minnesotan that doesn't like it when people say cold is bad.
Right.
Oh,
God,
yeah.
They're like, cold is great. We
Right,
love cold.
Are you talking about the kind of cold where if you go outside for 5 minutes you might die? You know,
They
that's
don't care. They don't
objectively a
care.
bad thing.
They don't care.
Subjectively
They're
bad.
just like, do not diss Minnesota weather.
Wasn't it was it Garrison Keeler who had like the famous line that was the cold is what keeps out the rest of the, like
The
that?
Oh,
riffraff.
yes. The riff. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was
true.
very like Minnesota. Yeah.
But it
By the
doesn't
way,
anymore.
I got a booking at Acme. I'll be there the first week of March. So hopefully,
Oh, cool.
Well,
we'll be
won't
here.
Be there.
hopefully you guys turn the page on the crazy winter stuff by then. That seems early though. It could
I
snow.
don't think so. Not the first week in May. In
Ear-
March, excuse me.
Early
Yeah.
March, it's usually snowy,
iffy.
but not that cold.
It's iffy.
Right.
Yeah.
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 So
Yeah,
it's a good time.
I'll
So
be at
bring your
Acme.
galoshes.
My galoshes. Okay.
It'll be soupy and slushy.
Soupy.
Yep.
My Falcons missed the playoffs after losing to the Panthers, which is the kind of phrase you usually say right before you drop a toaster into the bathtub.
Okay.
You can't get into the playoffs because of the Panthers? Oh. I was out of the country, so I missed it. My buddy said it was painful to watch. And Kirk Cousins was paid several $1 million to watch it. I don't think it was worth it to him either.
Is he done?
There's such a
Painful.
shortage of quarterbacks. He's probably going to get another shot somewhere.
Yeah, maybe. You
I'll be
might
a quarterback.
He's going to be a bridge quarterback for the Giants or the Browns or something, right?
You couldn't get the game at all in Greece?
I was just busy with family. I didn't even try.
Well, they'd also all have been at like 2 o'clock in the morning, I'm assuming. So.
Yes, it was a terrible time. My brother, I think, watched some of it on some crazy, he found some crazy pirated streaming thing
Yeah.
where the guy is doing the commentating and the game's on behind him. It's like, all right. I didn't care that much. I didn't expect them to win, and I was happy
Well,
to
yeah,
be
there's that.
sleeping and hanging out with the family. Atlanta was bad this year, but at least they wildly mismanaged their money. so that's good.
Oh, do tell.
Oh, my God.
Well, they committed $100 million to Kirk Cousins, among other questionable things.
Why? This guy has never accomplished anything, and he's made like $250 million.
It's more. It's crazy how much money he's made. He's
Why?
leveraged his skills into money better than anyone in the history of the league. It's amazing.
I just don't get. He's not very good. Plus the fact, he was sitting at the next table. Kath and I were having lunch one day. Here are his arms, right here. He is.
He's not big. Yeah.
No, he's this rail thin little guy.
Right.
I just don't. I mean, he's not short. He's about 6'2", 6'3", something like that. I think. I'm not really sure, but I don't understand why this guy earns so much money. He has never won anywhere.
Are there minimum requirements to be a quarterback? Like you have to be able to throw a spiral X amount of yards.
I would assume so. Yes.
I mean, is that like
accuracy
the only
and
thing?
distance? Yeah, those are like the two things that matter.
Yeah.
So.
The only things that matter. So
They
it doesn't
try
matter
to
if you've got
measure and
noodle
guess and figure out who's good and bring him in, and you don't really know until you see him. You know.
Do they still have them throw football through a tire?
Yes, I'm sure.
Probably.
I'm sure they do. No question about it.
Do you think some of these coaches are just so arrogant? Like I can bring it out in him. You know, he's a chronic
be, yeah.
loser, but I can make him.
Oh
a winner.
yeah, maybe.
Yeah, I saw Nick Saban did an interview, the former Alabama coach. He did an interview where he talked about going to coach the Dolphins, and he said coaches have to be careful because we went and they had given up all their draft capital for Ricky Williams, and they didn't really have a premier quarterback, and the team had all these different strikes. And he goes, I just thought I could go in there and fix it because I had a bad case of the dumbass, is what he said about himself. Which I think is kind of cool to hear, a gigantically successful guy talk about his failings and mistakes,
Sure.
This was fun. I saw this highlight in Greece. A Cowboys cheerleader got hit in the head by an errant kickoff.
Oh.
What?
Yeah. It's the first time you heard the phrase, a kicker drilled a cheerleader. Huh?
Oh, here we go. Because he's a kicker? Is that why you're saying that?
Because he's a kicker.
Because he's a kicker.
Not really.
I mean, kickers are very important, but
Oh, yeah.
not,
You guys know.
not sexy.
Yeah. Coach Mike McCarthy's contract ends this week. Even the lawyers knew the Cowboy season would be over by now. They're like, we're going to need him in January and February.
Yeah, true. He's good. He can go.
By the way, not a joke, a fact. Belichick's girlfriend has not been alive for a Cowboy Super Bowl.
Oh my God.
Hey, take that in.
So gross.
Well, to be
Take
fair,
that
I
in.
haven't been alive for a Viking Super Bowl, so.
Gross.
It's so gross. His age starts with a 7, and hers starts with a 2. It's crazy.
That's
I know.
just
It's
they have.
gross.
How could they have anything in common?
What did they talk about?
Yeah, seriously.
She's just a prize, and she's just like getting all that she can.
Yeah,
I get it.
More money.
I understand the trade-off, but
Yeah.
it's
That's just,
I've
I
been
guess
puzzled
if they're
by
happy,
it always.
God.
Well, I got to be honest with you. When I first met Catherine, I was 29 and she was 21.
We're still.
And I took her to a friend's house for a party. And the entire night, all I got to hear about is, so what does she look like when she has her Girl Scout uniform on?
Oh yeah,
I said,
right.
oh, God.
Yeah.
Hardly the same thing.
Hardly
Not
the
decades
same.
of differences.
Yeah.
Not yes, not decades of difference.
Not
but
decades.
yeah. I mean,
I did catch heat for you only being 21 years old, though.
Right.
I'm like a decade is fine. 2, 3, yeah, gross, just gross.
generations.
You're all gross.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Even when I was in my 20s, I was drawn to women in their 30s.
Yeah.
I don't know. 20s, you don't know nothing about nothing yet.
That's true. But you think you do.
Right. Oh.
True.
What can one say? Now,
I still am
45
drawn
years
to
later.
women in their 30s, but now they're too far away.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The older they stay the same age.
They've never seen MASH. Like, what do you talk about? I don't understand.
I love that show. God, I haven't seen that show in years. I loved that show.
Don't worry,
I
I'm
love
sure
that
they'll
show,
reboot it any day now.
Yeah, probably true. That's probably true. Oh, Costaki, do you have my address here?
I don't know. Maybe.
Because you gotta send me your your letter every year.
Oh,
so
I
you gotta
did,
send it to
but
the
I can
right.
send it to a different place if you
Oh,
like.
if you send it,
His
no,
letter of
if-
consent to be on the show.
yes, his letter of consent. No, if you already sent it, it'll get here. But I'll make sure that you got the address. And all
Oh,
that
okay. Yeah, we're good.
Okay, so we're good. I just want to make sure we're good. That's
Yeah.
all I'm saying.
Well,
You
you
know.
can just email it too. There's this thing called email.
Oh no, we had to get kicked
is it-
right in the crotch.
Is it
by
you,
my
Catherine? Is it Andy? Who do I email it to? Is it?
Anybody?
Yeah,
can-
honestly, anyone.
Okay, I'll resend it and make sure
Yeah.
it gets to
wife. Well, you
you
don't
guys.
have to resend it. It'll
No
get
worries. Okay, all right.
here. What else is happening, Pally?
Tyreek Hill implied that he's leaving Miami. He said he's opening the door for himself. That was the phrase.
Opening
Hopefully
the
it's
door for myself?
Yeah, I'm opening the door for myself. Hopefully, it's the door to a drugstore and he's getting some condoms. That's what I'm looking for.
Oh, he's got 11 kids, something like that?
It's some crazy number, yes.
It is.
That's gross too. Sorry.
That's
is.
super gross. And not just gross, but like grossly irresponsible.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, right. Belichick's just being regular gross.
Yeah.
Just normal.
Everyday gross.
Yeah, just the regular. Patriots fired Gerard Mayo after one season. Everyone knows Mayo isn't going to stay good for a year. You know, Mayo led the Patriots. It was the worst record in the NFL until this week, and then they won a game to lose the number 1 draft pick.
Oh God, that's not smart.
That's why you gotta hold the Mayo. See you later, buddy.
See.
Let's see here. Aaron Rodgers, his miniseries is called Enigma because Jackass was taken.
Oh, there you go. I've never talked to him. Is he as big a pain in the ass as he seems to be?
I mean, I've not met him, but from a distance, he sure seems awful.
He does. Ugh.
He's gross in another way.
He's gross in several ways. Yeah, he's another one who's grossly irresponsible. Like you can't run around. You know, some of the examples have political sort of. It becomes a touch point, but take a simple example. Like he said that Jimmy Kimmel was on the Epstein list, which proved to be untrue. They'd never even met, apparently, and it created a giant problem for Kimmel, and millions of people now associate him in that way. You know, like.
Yeah,
Aaron has,
terrible.
He said a lot of wildly irresponsible things. So I make fun of him. That's what I do.
That's a good point. Has anybody ever done that to you? Try to claim that you did something that was totally untrue?
Oh, that's a good question. You mean in terms of like in the public eye?
In the public eye, yeah.
I've gotten a few because I was with Caroline Ray. She was kind of a famous big shot when I was with her.
I remember, yeah.
So occasionally there'll be some thing. In fact, about 3 weeks ago, an article came out about my daughter that was clearly written by AI. It was a bunch of these weird fragmented factlets that were quasi-true, not quite true. And in the article, it said that my kid was largely raised by her mother. And I'm like, what the hell? For half the time, what do I got to do to...
And you're the bad guy.
But, you know, you recognize, like, first of all, no one cares about that kind of thing.
Yeah.
But I could totally see how if you were, you know, if you're a politician, if your reputation was at stake and you're very much in the public eye, you get some misinformation that people sort of accept as true. And then, of course, if it's corrected, not everybody hears that step of it. You know what I mean?
Oh.
Right.
I could totally see how it could be a giant problem if you're a big star. You know, I've only just sniffed big stardom, but
Why do you think it is when you're successful, people love to try to harm you? Why do they love that so much?
It's an interesting. I think it's a psychological. It's a human thing. We like when the bigger you get, the harder you fall. We like this idea of taking down the hero somehow.
Why?
I don't
Can't
know.
be happy for anybody?
I think because their lives seem so great by comparison.
Yeah.
You know, private jets, and most people are sweating dollar to dollar to dollar. And these are people who clearly aren't having that problem. And
Right.
I think there's some joy in the big names sort of falling from grace somehow. I don't know.
I guess. They just can't be happy for you. Most people cannot be happy for you. It's really too bad.
Yeah, I think there's some truth to that. I think it's hard for, and you know, I've struggled with it a little bit in my own professional life because like I feel like I made it 25 years of rooting for all the comics all the time, no matter what.
Yep.
And now, like 30 years in, I'm like, that's the guy you picked. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do have a little bit of like, it's no one said it was going to be fair, and it's not fair, and it's actually show business is the example of what's not fair in life. It doesn't pretend to be fair, but the gap between the haves and the have-nots in comedy and lots of other places is gigantic.
Yes.
It's crazy. Like Nate Bargatze, who I know a little bit, I think he's a great comic. I root for Nate Bargatze, but I went to one of his shows in Omaha, and there were 16,000 people there.
Wow.
The next night, the Eagles played in the same venue. And it's just Nate standing there in his tennis shoes telling jokes. And I love Nate standing in his tennis shoes telling jokes. I think he's a fantastic comic. But the difference between what I made that night and what he made is like, it's like 10,000 times. It's not like he made a little bit more. It's like you can't even get your head around the gap.
No.
And I mean, way back in the day, I talked about this on stage for a while. Caroline got a gig at a casino. This was an outlier. This is not what she usually made, but one night she made $30,000 for a show, and they paid me to open for her, and they gave me $500. And I was like, "You could be funnier than me, but you're not 60 times as funny." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And
It's like how I feel about these bottles of wine that are like $20,000. It's
Right,
like,
of
okay,
course.
it's probably better than a $20 bottle of wine, but is it 100 times better?
Right.
Probably not.
Right.
Right.
Probably
Right.
not.
Exactly the same. Right.
Yeah.
So Nate's on a private jet and traveling around with his buddies, and I think that I saw the number. The tour last year grossed like $85 million.
Amazing.
And I'm like, did we get 97 sold for the Friday show in Minneapolis? It's just it's a whole different universe.
Sure.
And so I think when the public sees, whatever, fill in the blank superstar, and they're in their private jets and they're doing all their fancy stuff, and then, they get a divorce, or they have to go to rehab, or they say something dumb and get quasi canceled. I think there's a little bit of that Schadenfreude kind of joy that comes with it.
Yeah, probably.
I don't think that's a good quality, but I understand where it comes from.
Yeah. I always think the same way about like movies. They make these movies and the margins are razor thin. And it's like, okay, so, we got to make $600 million to recoup the costs. And it's like, well, yeah, because you spent $300 million on, like Tom Hanks and Tracy Morgan and that kind of thing. It's like, why are you paying these people $75 million when these roles really aren't difficult? Anyone can do this role.
But again, it's the same thing that happens with athletes. They get the money because it's worth it from a business point of view.
Apparently, I don't know how, but yeah, apparently.
Because if there's a movie with great actors in it that no one's ever heard of, it's hard to sell tickets. I mean,
it's sad, but it's true.
When Tom Cruise is in it, there's a picture of Tom on the sign, and it's going to.
A lot of people just because it's him, they're going to go to it no matter what it is.
Yep.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I suppose that is true.
But that's not true of sports, though. No one's like, I don't really like the Panthers, but that quarterback is so cool. I'm going to become a Panthers fan this year. Or do people do that?
I mean, if they're good, there's different fans connect in different ways.
I suppose. When I think sports teams, I think you're kind of like beholden, though. Basically, where you live or where you were born.
Yeah, that's the big one. I talk about it on stage a lot because I find it fascinating how people connect with their teams. And very often it's the team that was good when the guy was 10 years old.
Yeah, that's
so, like the Bears in 85, if guys who were born in around 75, some of them love the Bears even though they're not from Chicago. And the same sort of story about the Cowboys and the Steelers. There were a couple of like dynasties along the way that people connected with when they were in their formative fandom years. And then sometimes it's like your grandmother gave you a bobblehead when you were 4.
Yes.
Sometimes it's random and interesting that way.
I remember when you did when Adam Carolla came into Minneapolis and he asked you to be a guest on his show. Mm-hmm. And we were all sitting in the back. and Adam was sort of just sitting by himself, and we were like, we're not going to bug him. He's probably mentally preparing. Who knows? And we were talking, and somebody said something about him being a Vikings fan. And I said, why? And I didn't think he heard me. He goes, because of Bud Grant.
There you
Right.
go.
And I'm like, well, that was
Okay, then.
many decades ago.
Right.
Long time.
And then it's like a worm in your head, and
Yeah.
it eats at you, and you kind of connect in some for whatever reason like that.
Well, if you tell me to name a basketball team, I'm probably going to think either the Timberwolves, because that's, our team, or I'm going to think the Chicago Bulls, because they were huge in the 90s.
Oh,
And I
God,
grew
yes.
up, while I was growing up, it's all you heard about was the Chicago Bulls. So it's like they're the basketball team to me.
Right. And my generation, a lot of the dudes are Cowboys fans because they were the dominant
Yeah,
force when they were young.
Yeah.
And when I was a kid, I had the vibrating football game, and it was
Yep.
Steelers Cowboys.
Oh,
Those were the
yeah.
two big teams of that era.
Wasn't that just a crap game?
Yes. It wasn't the game.
Then they
Yeah.
fell over. Oh,
Yeah.
yay.
It was fun setting them up. It's a little bit of chess, but yeah, it's corny, it's silly. Yeah.
Those were the days. I have to ask you a question, because I've been thinking about this now for the last 15, 20 minutes. And maybe it's me, and maybe it's the time of my life and all the rest of it. Maybe it's the leadership of I don't know what it is. People are just not as funny as they used to be.
No, I don't think so.
There's so many things now that they tell you cannot talk about that or you're going to get sued.
Yeah.
Is there a lot of that going on?
I listened to Jerry Seinfeld just answer some version of this question.
There
I thought
you
he
go.
had I thought he had a great answer. He said, and he's kind of come back and forth on a couple of things. He said some really harsh things about sort of the woke left in terms of how it
Right.
relates to comedy.
Right.
And he's also backpedaled and sort of apologized for that since, which is interesting. And he said he thinks of it like a big shot slalom skier. He goes, your job is to get down the hill wherever they put the markers. Your job is to slalom in and out of those. And society's always going to move those every hill you go to. That's part of what it is to be a good skier.
Yeah.
So I like that answer. I think that's true. You grow up and you evolve first comic I ever saw live was Sam Kinison. I was 17 years old.
There you go.
I went to see him at a Coliseum. Liberace died 4 days prior.
Oh, God.
And Sam was acting out being sodomized on a piano at the show.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
So that's a joke he wouldn't do now.
No, he would not.
But and you shouldn't, right? I like that we do grow as a culture, and then different people are going to have different tastes about, where those slalom markers are.
Yeah, true.
But as the artist in the equation, kind of what the social markers are, and it's your job to kind of get away with it. You got to find a way to do it that has some flair and taste and a little naughtiness and still make it work in the room. That's part of what it is to be a comic.
Right. So there'll never be another Richard Pryor because he broke every rule there was to break.
Yeah, I think there's some. I think you can make that argument, but also like,
Well, Chappelle's kind of.
I mean, I think broadly the idea of comics being canceled is overblown. There's a couple of guys who have lost a lot of opportunities because of things they did off the stage, which is a different question. But in terms of on stage, I mean, sometimes you say some things that aren't PC and you take some heat for it. That's the trade-off.
Yeah, it is. Absolutely.
It didn't work out for Michael Richards.
No, I
Oh,
went a little beyond.
oh yeah.
piece.
Timmy Lammers joins us to remember.
I'm thinking Costaki. I mean, what a baptism by fire. Sam Kinison, your first show, man. That's
I know,
crazy.
right? Right? Yeah.
Great guy, though, by the way. In person, you could not meet a nicer guy.
That's
But
cool to hear.
But you know what's interesting? I mean, you say Sam Kinison now and you think, oh my God, that's the guy that's way out there. But back in that day, he was like one of many, wasn't he? It wasn't like such of an outlier then.
Oh yeah, of course, and it's of the time. I mean, comics have talked about this before. Eddie Murphy's first track on his first album, I think this is correct, is called "Faggot."
Oh my God.
My
Well,
word.
yeah. I mean, if you look it up, it's probably on Netflix. His comedy special, Delirious, is unbelievable.
it
The
is.
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
places he goes.
Right.
That was like in the mid 80s, 84, 85, something like that.
Yeah. And I even I can look back at my own first album and go, I wouldn't do that joke anymore. Or I don't feel good about what the point of this line was. I have a couple of those even in my arc, you know?
You are correct,
Yeah.
by the way. 1982 live comedy album called
Okay,
Eddie Murphy.
yeah.
That is track number 1.
Wow.
I remember listening to that in my freshman dorm. Yeah, so I guess it would be 82, 83. Yeah, you're right. And
And if I'm not
Wow.
mistaken, on his next album, he had another track that was like Faggots Part 2 or something.
yeah, Eddie Murphy Raw.
Revisited,
Eddie Murphy
yes.
Raw, he picked up on what he did in the
Yep.
prior album. Yeah, it's amazing. And you know what? I mean, Eddie's kind of marched to his own beat anyway. But the fact that he is still working and that he wasn't canceled is amazing. Maybe he's the sort of guy that isn't canceled.
Well, it's just
Cancelable.
at the time, I mean, we were just not thoughtful about our language regarding homosexuality at all.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
and it's true of other areas. I mean, we would think nothing of saying the R word and some of the other things that we've talked about lately that we tried to not say, you know, we tried to grow past, and, you know, we grow as a culture. And then of course, you know, there's ebbs and flows. You kind of come back down and up again, you know, but there's plenty of comics out there who are saying whatever the hell they want and they're fine. You know, Gervais is doing it, and Bill Burr, and
Yeah.
And Chappelle. That's about the only three that I can think of high profile wise.
yeah, I don't know.
There really
I don't-
isn't anybody else.
I don't know if I would say that. I feel like within some basic taste and boundaries, you could still kind of do what you want, especially in a nightclub environment, because there's still this sort of like, we're in the dark when we're having drinks. It's okay to say the things that aren't in polite society. That's part of the joy of a comedy club experience.
How Nikki Glazer? I mean, I'm certainly aware of her. I watched her on the Golden Globes. She said ahead of time she was going to play it safe. I know she's an insult comic, and honestly, I didn't see the Tom Brady thing. But how far does she go in a normal setting, in a normal comedy club setting?
You know what? I used to be I was kind of friendly with her. She was a peer of mine. It was like a friends of a friends thing. I didn't know her well, but we were all kind of at the same level of like kind of unknown, good workaday comics, you know? And so I've always respected her because she's a real comic. She didn't just like fall off a cliff and was like a pretty face that they grabbed for the world. But yeah, I mean, in the Tom Brady roast, she was harsh and hilarious. That might be her best 10 minutes of her whole career. I thought it was fantastic.
Really? Well, I probably earned her the Golden Globe spot, and they're already talking about bringing her back for next year, which makes sense. I thought she did terrific. I mean, she's not Gervais. I mean, that guy is just he's complete. He's a mile away. I mean, and she said ahead of time, I'm not going to touch that stuff. But I thought she did. She was really good. I thought it was a great opening monologue.
She's a cool chick. I like her. I root for her, and she's a good comic. I mean, like I watched her come to New York and was a little bit newish and kind of hesitant, and then just from like pounding all those sets, all you know, coming on after these murderers and handling that situation, and she's great. I mean, she's earned it, man.
It's great. Yeah.
There
I
you
mean,
have it.
she's another one though. Like if you're talking about, you know, like we're doing the difference between what I make and what Nikki Glazer makes. I mean, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's preposterous how huge she is now. So good for her.
Who was the woman that used to hang out with? Oh God, who was her boyfriend? Nikki Glazer.
Amy Schumer dated Anthony Jeselnik for a while. That might be what you're thinking of.
Jeselnik, but there was.
I don't
Nikki
think
Glazer
Nikki had a
There's a
famous.
guy named Chris Convey. I don't know who that is.
Who dated Bobcat Goldthwait?
Oh, that was the sitcom actress.
Yeah,
Nikki
Yeah.
Fox?
Nikki
Yes.
Fox. Was that her name? Nikki Fox. There you
Yeah,
go.
yeah.
Fox.
Oh yeah.
God, God, he's changed a bit. Bobcat, not the same easygoing guy he used to be. Last time I ran into him, he was a raging prick.
What?
Really?
I'm
Oh,
surprised
God,
to hear
yeah.
that.
It was,
You know, when I was doing stuff at Care in town here, they used to have a comedian segment after
Right.
the film review stuff. And I sat in the green room, I think it was with Scott Hansen, Kevin Meaney, and Bobcat. And I sat right next to Bobcat, and he was really a good guy.
was. Yeah,
I'm trying to
back in
think
the
how
day.
many years ago that was. That was the first and only time that I had met him. And first and only time I met Kevin Meaney, for that matter. But
I love Meanie. I
I
took
did
Meanie
too.
to lunch just for no reason in New York one time. we had a great time.
both great guys, and Scott Hansen, of course, too. I mean, wonderful man.
Somehow I never met Scott. He was gone before I was knocking around Minnesota.
Got to tell you a very quick Kevin Meaney story. Many, many, many years ago, right? He comes in the studio, KQRS, and he's sitting there and he goes, Tom, I'm very depressed. And I said, why? He said, because I have a couple of shows here tonight, and then tomorrow night I got a couple of shows in Missouri. And I said, yeah? He said, they sent me a picture of the billboard, the movie theater billboard thing. Tomorrow night, Kelly Mealy.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
That's almost as bad. That's almost as bad as Puppet Show and Spinal Tap.
That's Spinal.
Remember that?
Yes, exactly. That's exactly it. Oh God, those were the days. I will tell you, I really do miss it, Costaki, when all these comedians used to travel through town and have one on Thursday, one on Friday. It was just God, it was wonderful. But it just doesn't happen that much anymore. I still have people on. Don't get me wrong. Obviously, you know that because you're here. But boy, comedians coming through town don't do as much morning interview stuff as they used to.
Why? Is
that I have the same question. I thought this was a radio choice, not a comic choice. Has the world shifted? That seems to be less of a go-to thing than it used to be. I'm having the same experience.
The way to get yourself out there is social media now.
I guess, yeah, that would make sense. But I miss that so much, all those people coming through town. And, well, Costaki, that's how I met you. That's how I met Tim. I mean,
right.
To these days, guys coming, the generation behind you, I will not even know who the hell they are because they don't do radio, podcasting, any of that stuff anymore.
Right.
Do you think maybe part of it has to do with the whole, I might say it's live and they might say
possible,
something
yeah.
they regret.
Yeah, maybe.
Whereas at least, not that social media is any better. I mean, how many times have people said stupid things, and somebody's saying something stupid on social media as we speak?
Yeah.
But at least they have a chance to type it down and think it through. Whereas radio, you blurt it out and it's there forever.
And it's just there.
Yeah.
Well, I'll do radio when I come to town, March 5th through the 8th at Acme in Minneapolis.
There you go.
What do you think of that action?
See, that's
Take
just
that
it. That's
over.
why you can plug that stuff on radio and podcast, Costaki. Exactly.
I'm sold.
Seem to think that that's the best medium for it, but social media, I don't know.
You're right. In the old days, you would fly in Thursday night and they would hand you like a list of media, and it would be like 7 a.m. we're doing this, and then 8:15 and 9:45 and 11:30, and it was like, and this one's you got to be TV ready, and this one's radio. It was just, there would be this whole block of time where you were running all over town doing media for the shows on the weekend, and now it's much less often.
I was kind of sad about that. I was talking to a guy about this a couple of weeks ago now, I guess it was. But a big part of that used to be, look at our lives. Andy, you're too young for this, but you look back when we were kids, if you got to be on television, that was a very big deal to be on television. Now, if you're on live television, unless you're on the news, nobody has any idea you're even on television.
Yeah.
Because
Especially
live television,
late night. And
especially
the
late
only
night.
way, and the only way they're
Yep.
going to find you is on YouTube, where they have the
Yep.
clips in their own YouTube channel.
Yep.
But nobody, I guess, I haven't seen the numbers, but nobody watches live television other than local newscasts. That's all they watch. And then they go back to watching Netflix.
And the Globes did something very, very smart, and the Academy, the Oscars are doing it, streaming. Paramount
that's
Plus
exactly it.
streamed the Globes live. Hulu is going to have the Oscars I mean, because broadcast, it's not completely dead, but man, look at the ratings. 10.1 million, I think, for the Golden Globes, and I don't know if that includes streaming, but that seemed like a pretty low number, doesn't it? I
Yes,
mean,
it does.
yeah, it's the old TV.
The old TV is not around.
Will it come
anymore.
back around? I mean, I'm buying albums again.
Well, there
Those
you
went
go.
away. I mourned that, but that came back. But I don't know. I guess maybe because streaming is so damn expensive when you have everything. Maybe people will start going back to broadcast. I don't know.
Streaming
right
this,
about that.
I think streaming last year was down like 26%. So
Because it's too expensive.
Yeah, people are sick of having to have like 6 different services, so they're starting to cut them.
Well, I could see that. That makes
Well,
sense.
the blessing and the curse of streaming was that it really hit its stride during COVID.
Yes.
Where everybody was stuck at home and didn't have anything to do. So naturally, everybody did subscribe.
Yeah.
And then before you know it, because they were so big, you have Netflix paying The Rock and Gal Gadot and who was the other guy? One of the other stars, Ryan Reynolds. They're in Red Notice. It's a $200 million budget for a streaming movie, a streaming movie only. So how do you recoup that cost? Through subscriptions? No. You get in the pay ad service, which people don't like, but it's cheaper. Or you boost the subscription price for everybody, which they did too. So that's why streaming is down. Yeah, it's getting really. You know what though? For the money that you pay, let's say you're paying the top tier for Netflix, you're getting a month's worth of entertainment for $21.
Yeah.
All the movies, all the TV shows, all the comedy specials you want. That's a damn good deal. But I guess when you pile everything up, it's your cable bill all over again.
Right.
It is.
Yep.
Yeah, I think it was Jim Gaffigan who said they should bundle the streaming services into one thing and call it cable.
Yeah, I know.
There you go.
Well, you have Disney Plus, and they own Hulu. So you have Disney Plus and Hulu, and Max, which is Warner Brothers Discovery. They have a bundle right now. So maybe it is headed that way, where it is going to be everything is going to be bundled.
If you're an NFL fan, it's going the opposite way. Now, if you want to see the Thursday game, you got to go here, and the Sunday game is there, and we want the Christmas game. Oh, do you want the Black Friday game? Like they're all in these different crazy things, and you can't get it all with one thing. It's not possible.
And it's expanding. I mean, the NFL Christmas contract is 3 years. And they had big streaming numbers for that. And then I know one of the wild card games is on Prime Video, which really to me has never been a big deal because you're getting the $2 or the 2-day free shipping anyway. I mean, and a lot of people subscribe to Prime, so I never saw it as a problem. But people were pissed off last year when Peacock. Remember they had a wild card game on Peacock.
Yeah,
and that pissed people off.
Yeah, right. Yep.
Well, I can close with this one. I just last week ran into Jim Gaffigan. He was at a restaurant I walked into, and I saw him and just went over and said hello and all the rest of it. And then like 2 days later, he got nailed in the national press. Why is everybody so pissed off at Jim Gaffigan?
Oh,
what did he do?
What did he do?
He did something.
He came out and expressed regret. It was a political thing.
Oh,
I know that much. Yeah, he expressed regret about alienating. And don't quote me on any of this. Look it up, but it's something that I think he pissed off a lot of the right because he was coming out and endorsing. I don't know if he endorsed, but then again, he did that. What was it? The Al Smith dinner.
Yeah.
What's that? Yeah, and he took a shot at the left during
He did.
that.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. I watched that whole thing because I was interested, and it was even-handed and all over the place, and yeah, for sure.
But I think again, it had something to do with getting political.
Yeah,
which
Yeah,
you
it
just
did.
can't
Is that
do.
what it was?
You're
Oh,
alienating.
definitely.
I
You looking
don't.
That's what people, just social media, they were all mad at him for being political.
Oh, is that what it was? And he was leaning.
Yeah.
He was leaning left instead of right.
I don't know which way it was going, but I just
I don't
remember posts about Gaffigan being political and.
But it's really kind of funny because when I walked up to say hello to him, he had a look on his face like he was a ghost. He literally looked like he was like, oh no, a media person, this could get bad.
I interviewed him for that Jerry Seinfeld movie.
Oh yeah.
What was that? The Pop-Tart movie. And I said, man, you got to do more of these serious roles because, and I mentioned Tom because obviously, Jim. I said, we were talking about this movie you did with Josh Hartnett, and it was a small role, but he played a drug dealer. Mm-hmm. I said, we were thinking, man, you're on the level of Philip Seymour Hoffman. He says, you know what? I've heard that a lot.
Well, he kind of looks like him anyway.
Yeah, he looks like him anyway. And he's really he was frightening in that role. It was a very small role, I think, at the very beginning, especially where he's dancing with a couple call girls or whatever. And you just had that uneasy feeling about him, like, okay, this guy could go off at any second.
Right.
I mean, he was really, really good. Plus, I don't know if you've ever seen, there's a movie called Chappaquiddick. He played one of the Kennedy cronies, and he's really good in that too. And that's obviously more of a dramatic role. So I think the guy has some dramatic chops, as they say.
Yeah,
well, we can close with this. There's a wonderful place about mile and a half away from our house here, and Ted Kennedy used to be famous for going into the place and dropping his pants right in the middle of the restaurant. Why he would do that, I don't know. But what's the name of it now? Because it wasn't called that then.
I don't know.
Oh, it's the one we just went and had dinner at the other night. What's it called? The Palm Beach Grill.
The Palm Beach Grill.
Palm Beach Grill.
Oh yeah.
What was it? What
That's
did it
right.
used
He
to
did
be called?
do that. I think it's always. I don't. Did they have to change their brand after he did that?
Yeah, they changed their name after he dropped his pants in the restaurant. Yes.
Yeah,
well, talking about
not very appetizing.
Talking about social media, man. Can you imagine that? Everybody with their phones.
Oh God.
We were just talking about. Remember Dino Ciccarelli?
Oh yeah.
Big hockey star in Minnesota. Great, nice family, handsome guy.
Really nice guy.
He was just the guy. And for some reason, he decided to walk around in his neighborhood naked. That pretty much did him in. I don't know why guys do this stuff. I have no idea.
Dino was a great guy, too. He was a very nice guy.
Back in the day when they used to be the North Stars.
Yeah.
Right?
The North Stars.
That's right.
I remember the phone ringing, and I answered the phone, and he goes, Tommy, I'm going to need your help. I'm like, oh, that didn't sound good.
I came into this late. Before we go, I got to know, Costaki, what's going to happen with Cousins now? Are they just going to cut him loose? What's going to happen?
It's a great question. It was publicized as a 4-year deal, but it's basically a 2-year deal. It's guaranteed $100 million-ish, $90 million over 2 years. So, and it's front loaded. So a lot of that money they've already spent for this year. He's going to have some trade value. There's going to be teams that would like to have a quarterback, but they might not want to spend whatever is left on the contract for this next year, 40 million, 37, something like that.
Unbelievable.
Maybe they'll trade him to somebody like the Giants. Maybe they just cut him and eat the money. Maybe they keep him and they have him as a glorified backup in the meantime. Because he's played a little hardball on this front. And I think the Falcons should play hardball back because they're already on the hook for the money. They should do what's good for the team, right?
Right.
So I don't know. We'll see. That remains to be seen. But I think we've proven that he's not the answer and that Penix could be the answer. So they're probably going to turn the page in one way or the other. We'll see.
I just think anybody can follow the Vikings. And if we have had enough of a quarterback, that's a big statement because we'll put up with a lot for a long time before we will actually make a change here.
Right.
So if there's a change, it's for a really good reason.
Right.
Here's what I see happening. Falcons are going to sign Sam Darnold to a monstrous contract. Vikings are going to trade to get Cousins back. No, I'm kidding.
Oh, God. Boy, look at the time.
How dare you?
Costaki, thank you very much, sir. Another great report.
Thanks, guys.
See you, Costaki.
Pleasure. Talk to you
Timmy
soon.
Lammers, of course, brought to you by Bradshaw and Bryant Personal Injury Lawyers, seeking justice for the injured. Contact Bradshaw and Bryant at MinnesotaPersonalInjury.com. Thank you, boys, and we'll talk to you later.
Yeah.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. I just talked about myself again.
Got a picture in my pocket reminds me of this was before. Every time I hear the singing reminds me how you talking.